Are you looking to breed reptiles to get rich? Well, you certainly can, but you probably won't. And today, I'm going to tell you why you're more likely to go broke breeding reptiles. My name's Adam, this is Diamond, you're watching Wickens Wicked Reptiles. Stick around. This video isn't supposed to be a deterrent to breed reptiles, it's a deterrent to just jump into it rather than think about it, because I did and I went broke. I'm telling you, I went broke trying to breed reptiles many years ago, and it took a long time to turn it around. And I'll tell you exactly why. I'll tell you through the story of how it happened and exactly how you can avoid going broke trying to breed reptiles for profit. My story is the same as most other people's. I started buying breeding stock and I thought I'm gonna put them together, they're gonna make babies, and they're just gonna sell. I'm not even gonna have to put any work into it. And that's what I did. In 2015, I started to, really get into the Brian Barczyk videos. I think it was 2014. But anyway, in 2015, I decided, you know what? Maybe this is for me. But I was pretty hesitant. And then I found myself at a reptile expo in 2016, February 2016. And I was looking for my first hognose snake. I thought, this is going to be a great species to have. I wonder if I can find one. This is one of the biggest expos in the country, one hognose snake at the entire expo, and I bought it. So I thought, okay, everyone's asking about these things. I know that they're super popular in the US, and whatever's popular in the US today is gonna be popular in Canada in the next few years. That's how it works. So why wouldn't I be the guy providing these hognose snakes? Why can't I be the supply? So I started to buy baby hognose snakes. Every expo that had them, I would buy them out. I didn't care how much it was. I would just spend money on them because I knew I was gonna make my money back. The problem is when you buy breeding stock that's really young, especially with hognose snakes where females need to be 3 years old at bare minimum basically to produce, then in 3 years, is the market going to be the same? Is there people who started to do this in 2013 or 2014, years before me, and then now they're going to start flooding before I had the opportunity to flood the market myself? Now, this is actually the first point, is market research. What reptiles do you want to breed? Are you going to be the next leopard gecko breeder? I promise you, there's enough of them. But if you wanted to, and you wanted to do something a little bit different, because there is still reason to do it, then that's great, that's wonderful. If you're just breeding white and yellows and max snows, I'd recommend that you don't do that. But do market research. Look on the tables at expos. Look on the websites that sell them online. What's available? What are people asking about? Go on Facebook groups. What people are asking about what specific reptiles, and are those reptiles ever available? What morphs are really hot right now? Look into that and then figure out, is it going to be the same in a year, 2 years, 3 years if you can only buy juvenile or baby animals? So for me, I realized that there's a need for hognose. People really, really want them, but there's no supply. So that's what I was gonna do. Breed hognose. And I think that was actually a good choice. But then what I did is, well, I already have some leopard geckos. So I should breed the leopard geckos. And then what about ball pythons? Everyone has ball pythons. They must be selling if everybody's doing it. I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. And this is nobody's fault but my own. So why don't you learn from my mistake, where now everything I breed just sells basically immediately. And this isn't even because I have a channel and people know who I am now. It's just simply because I breed things that people want and I know what the market is. And I stopped breeding leopard geckos, well, a few pairs maybe, because I know that they're difficult to sell now. Most people are selling them already. I don't have anything super special. So I've shifted over to fat tails and Chihuahua geckos as my main thing for geckos. I'm still breeding hognose snakes, and then the ball pythons that I do breed now, I'm breeding morphs that people always want, even though they're really not worth tons of money. Because let me tell you, breeding is the easy part usually. If you're gonna breed ball pythons, hognose snakes, leopard geckos, the reason that everyone does it is because it's easy. We're not talking about Boelen's pythons here. If you could just pick up 2 Boelen's pythons and put them together, you'd be making tons and tons of money. The reason that these animals, there's so many of them, is because they're so easy to breed. So if you're thinking, oh, well, I did it. I made my leopard gecko. Well, that's the easy part. Now you got to figure out how to market those animals and sell them. How can you actually move these animals? And if you're nobody, which all of us start out as, how are you going to market the animals in the first place? I mean, are you gonna, what I thought was, oh, I'll just sell them on Facebook Marketplace, because back in the day you could sell animals on there still. Or I'm gonna sell them on Kijiji, which is Canada's version of Craigslist, and that's it. Because I bought animals on Craigslist, I figured it'd be pretty easy to sell. No, it doesn't really work like that. And if you want to sell them even on websites that are dedicated to live animal sales, reptile sales, Why is someone gonna buy a max snow leopard gecko from you instead of someone else? What makes you special? Well, you don't have any ratings. No one's bought from you before. The breeder that everyone knows has lots of vouchers, right? They have lots of people who will say, yeah, that's a great person to go to, and you don't. You're at a huge disadvantage for something that everybody already has. So what I would recommend first, before you sink money into this, is build some sort of network. Go to an expo and talk to people. Hey, I'm interested. Like, if you're not selling or breeding reptiles right now and you say to someone, hey, I'm interested, they're likely not going to think of you as competition. And usually, even between breeders, the last expo, I was stationed between a bunch of gecko breeders. We're all selling the same thing. We're all friendly, all happy to talk to each other. It's not really the way that you think. So maybe try to get a mentor or at least talk to people about it. Go online and talk to people. And this is not only for how-to and camaraderie, but also for sales. Because if you're talking to these people, likely you're gonna be in a group with other people who are buying these animals, and people that you buy animals from, a lot of the times breeders swap genetics, so they swap, this gecko for this gecko. So build up a network first. So you've got people to sell to. When you diversify, you have people to buy from, and then you have someone to bounce ideas off of. This is what I did much later. When I started breeding reptiles, ball pythons, for example, I didn't know anybody and nobody knew me. I was a bit shy. I'd go to expos, but I wouldn't talk to people very much. I felt like I was bothering them. You're not bothering them. Feel free to go talk to people. When someone comes up to me and says, hey, I'm looking to breed Chihuahua geckos. I see that, their stock is kind of rising. And like stock, I mean, people really want them, but there's really not that many available and they're still a good price. And I feel like it could be profitable. I'm like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. And I want to talk to this guy and help him out, even though I breed Chihuahua geckos. I don't see it as competition. And not only a network like that, but what happens when you have an emergency, right? If you have an egg-bound snake, do you know how to deal with it? Do you have a veterinarian around you? If you have an RI pop up, do you know to raise the temperature? Well, depending on species, right? So don't take my veterinary advice, go to a vet. But do you know the things that you do before you go to the vet? And we're getting to the money part in 2 seconds here, because that's the other big thing. You're gonna have to spend tons of money before you make $1. If you're gonna buy animals that are gonna sell for $500 or $1,000 to make it worth your time, or even say $200, you're gonna have to buy animals that are worth more than $200. And so you're gonna have to buy a bunch of females and a couple males or a few males, depending on species and genetics and things like that. So you're putting tons of money into animals. Animals are things that could just die one day. That's something that happens, right? Like humans, it happens to. Mammals, reptiles are no different. That could be sick and you don't even know it. So you're putting a lot of money into something that's not guaranteed to live anyway. But then the really expensive part, if you're gonna do ball pythons and racks, buy the racking system. Some of those cost thousands of dollars. If you're gonna keep them in PVC enclosures, some of these are cost $400, $500, $600, $700, $800 a piece, depending on what you're gonna keep them in. Then the lighting, then the nutrition is like a huge thing, right? So for example, in my collection, it cost me well over $1,000 a month just for the rodents, never mind the produce and powdered food and supplements and stuff like that. So are you able to keep up with that? If you have a breeding program with, 20 ball pythons and 20 hognose snakes, let's say, can you afford hundreds of dollars just for food every single month? Never mind what it's gonna cost for the power, right? Hydroelectricity here. So if I say hydro, that's what I'm talking about. Your electric bill is gonna be through the freaking roof. Mine is, I know that for sure. Can you afford that? And you're gonna be having to do this if you buy baby animals for a long period of time, for 2-3 years before you even make an animal. And then you have to get that animal to eat. Hognose snakes, for example, they are difficult to get to eat. Once you get them eating, you're good as gold. However, if you're taking a while to get them to eat and they're not eating on their own, you have to assist them for a while, then eventually they are eating, you've pumped, $40 of food into them each, plus the hydro, plus the bedding, plus the cost of the rack, plus the space of wherever you're gonna keep them in the first place. So now this animal that, on paper looks like it was free to produce is a $150 animal, your cost, never mind your time. So then once you sell that animal for $300, you're not making $300, you're making $150. People see these animals on the table and think, oh, well, that gecko, he's selling it for $200. Like that's, he's just making 200. Like I probably didn't make anything on that animal if I'm selling it for, $40 or $50 or $60. When people are making low-end leopard geckos and selling them for $30, they're doing it to get rid of them because they are genetics where you're trying to hit a lottery basically. And I'm not going to get into genetics, but there's a chance that you'll hit all the genes in one animal and that animal's worth a bunch of money. And then if you have bad odds and you get one gene or two or none, then they're really worth next to nothing. So they're selling them at a loss just to get rid of them. It's just part of how the game is played. So back in the day when I started, like before the YouTube channel, by the way, I started to make babies, ball python babies, hognose babies, and then I made some leopard gecko, lots of leopard gecko babies, and I couldn't move them. I couldn't freaking move them, and I had to buy more racks to keep them in because I couldn't move them. I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe I couldn't sell these animals. Nobody wanted to buy from me. I had the best prices in town. Nobody wanted to buy from me, and it's because no one knew who I was. I didn't know how to sell them properly. I didn't know how to market them properly. And I promise you, even I come from a background of sales. I have sold freaking everything from flowers to welding wire to advertising, billboards, magazine. I've sold everything, and I couldn't sell these freaking animals that I'm actually passionate about. So the idea that you're just gonna sell them, you build it and they will come, that might happen if you're making emeralds or hybrid animals or high-end retics, but if you're making leopard geckos that everyone already has or ball pythons that everyone already has, you're not gonna be selling them. And even if you could, I did the math, even if I sold them for my asking price, I barely would have broke even. So the title of the video is I went broke breeding reptiles, and I did. I really did. Eventually, I had to start selling the adult animals that were gonna produce the animals to make me money because I couldn't afford it anymore. I mean, I was in a bad spot financially because I jumped into something with 2 feet that I really didn't know about. I didn't have the YouTube channel. I had a regular desk job. I went 8 to 5 or maybe sometimes later, you know, working overtime when I could, and then come home and do the reptile thing. And I had tons of animals, and it was a lot. It was draining physically, but financially it just cost so much freaking money. And even that network thing, I didn't have a, you know, wholesaler to buy rodents from, so I'm paying full price, and it was just not good, and it was my own fault. So the whole video, the point is, you can breed reptiles and make money. I breed reptiles and I make money now. And all the guys at the expos, a lot of them, they do too. But it doesn't mean that you can unless you are ready and you know what you're doing. So don't go to an expo, buy 3 $40 geckos and a couple $200 hognose snakes and say, I'm a breeder now. I didn't even, like, I'm just reading my notes now, like incubators, incubation medium, like there's just, the list of things is crazy. Should I do a whole video breaking down the cost to breed reptiles? Let me know in the comments section below. While you're down there, please hit the like button. It really does help. If you like videos like this, let me know. I can make more. Either way, thanks so much. The Patreon supporters, you guys are amazing. You get videos early, discounts on merch, one-on-ones. I love the one-on-ones. I have 3 tomorrow. I'm excited for them. All that for as little as $1 a month, and that's it. Because I do videos twice a week, that means I'll see you in the next one.